Doesn't bode well. We start with Harry Smith in 1950, a beatnik weirdo living in New York City. His huge collections were insane, of Easter eggs and paper airplanes, and rare records. He had about 1,060,000. To change America through music was his hope, and to make some money because he was broke, he compiled a triple-decker collection of songs from his records, released as the Smithsonian Anthology of American Folk. Well, on a Monday morning, just about 9 o'clock, the great ship Titanic began to reel and rock. Husbands and wives, little children lost their lives. Was it sad when that great ship went down? Smith's plan began to work as foretold. This weird music began to take hold. It sparked an interest in these forms of life underground from the norms, and soon millions of folk records were being sold. By the early 60s, Dylan, Joan Baez, Phil Oakes were very inspired by those old folks. Then one strange folk band downtown, called the Holy Modal Rounders, began to make it more anarchistic with weird voices and drug jokes. Mom's out there, switching in the kitchen, and Dad's in the living room, crouching out a bitch, and I'm out here, kicking the gong for euphoria, euphoria. When your mind starts feeling and walking, your inside voice starts feeling and squawking, floating around on a belladonna cloud, singing euphoria. In 1965, the Holy Modal Rounders met some intellectual thugs on East 10th Street who called themselves the Fugs. The Fugs were recorded by the same Harry Smith, playing the punkiest songs yet to exist. Lo-fi, noisy stuff about poetry, sex, and drugs. I don't have a bedtime, I don't need to come, for I have become an amphetamine pub. If you don't like sleeping and don't want to screw, then you should take lots of amphetamine too. Thugs were real poets with real topics to speak out, and through the new underground scene, this weird music started to leak out, which began the punk idea that anybody could do it without needing much musical ability to it, and this new crazy music was soon called freak out. In 1966, the Fugs signed to New York label ESP. The same label put out a band called The Gods, spelled with a Z. The Gods accomplished the feat of making even the Fugs music sound sweet, with the least musical folk punk racket in history. Far from the West Coast hippie scene, New York's underground music was different from mainstream. It was intellectual, but noisy and hectic. And then the Velvet Underground went electric and made folk punk more beautiful and more extreme. I'm waiting for the man. I $26 in my hand. Up to lesson 2, 1 to 5. Feel sick and dirty, more dead than alive. Nothing could stop New York's strange folk punk tide. In 1968 came David Peel and the Lower East Side. This band recorded an album in the street, screaming and sloppy. When they were signed, it sold a ton of copies, with songs like I Like Marijuana and Up Against the Wall, Motherfucker inside. Mother, where is my father? Where is my brother? They're at war. They're at war. You made them join the dirty U.S. Army. You told them all the filthy white lies. You gave them all the bullshit and baloney. Now my brother and my father gonna have to die. Hey. And the Stooges were a freak-out band in Detroit, but folks ignored them until they were brought to New York and John Cale from the Velvets started to record them. While most acid rock bands were turning into progressive, the Stooges pushed the raw and aggressive, and Iggy Pop sang about degradation and boredom. Well, 1969, okay. War across the USA. Another year for me and you. And in 1970, David Peel's second album came, with some amazing songs and some a little lame. In most pre-punk histories, David Peel gets forgot because he was a hippie singing songs about pot. But his second album is the first album with the real sound that electric punk rock soon became. We are from the Lower East Side. We don't give a damn if we live or die. We are from the Lower East Side. We don't give a damn if we live or die. And in 1970, a guitarist named Lenny Kaye began playing music with an East Side poet